love your background, Cora. That seems like a very nice Victorian parlor there.
Well, we're going to be sitting tonight for a seance, and this is the very room that we're going to use.
Wonderful. So tell us, I'm excited that you came back from the past. What year would you say you're coming back from?
Oh, and 1923 is when I transitioned to spirit.
Okay, well, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Cora Richmond, and I'm best known because by the age of 15, I was demonstrating publicly the phenomena of transmediumship. I'm an author and a lecturer, a teacher, but most people don't know that my friends and I founded the NSA in 1893. Spiritualism was an enormous movement, but it had no organization. So W.H. Bach, Harrison D. Barrett, Luther V. Moulton, James Martin Peebles, and I decided that an organization could really help this cause. We hoped to promote the truths of spiritualism, distinguish genuine mediumship from fraud, and prevent legal prosecution of spirit mediums. So at the 3-day convention that started September 1st in 1893 in Chicago, Illinois, the NSA was born, National Spiritualist Association. And I am so proud to be co-founder, and I was elected vice president. I'm also proud to have been in newspapers such as the Boston Daily Globe and the Banner of Light. And this has aided in spreading the seeds of spiritualism farther than I could have ever hoped. So I'm so pleased that so many have chosen to follow in our footsteps. So may infinite intelligence continue to bless you all for the continuation and expression of the spiritualist movement.
Thank you so much, Cora. It's exciting that you were able to come back in time to be with us today. We really appreciate you. We are now going to meet another time traveler. Mary Ann is playing Sojourner Truth.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sojourner Truth. Ain't I a woman? Yes, I am. I am a freed woman, and I'm just as strong as any man. I can work the fields from dawn till dusk, just as much as any man. I was born an African-American slave as Isabella Von Wagon. I was overcome by this power of the spirit one day in 1826, the day I walked to become a freed woman. I walked to become free. I walked so far and so long, I didn't know where I was. The only thing I knew, I was free. The spirit inside of my bosom filled and was so powerful, I became a new woman on that day with new causes. The first one was to abolish slavery, and the second, women's rights. I changed my name to reflect this change within me from the spirit to sojourner. It means a sojourner on the earth. I felt it was the truth to follow the power of the spirit and preach throughout many cities in Michigan, New York, Ohio, and more northern states. So I started preaching in favor of abolishing slavery. I also preached in favor of women's rights with the suffragette movement. This is why I chose truth for my last name. Historians list the year of my birth as approximately 1797, but I am listed as dying at the ripe old age of 105. And mathematically speaking, the numbers don't add up. And no birth month is listed for me either. So 105 stands as counted by my eyewitness to my funeral, fellow suffragette and writer biographer of my life story as I dictated it to her, my beloved friend Harriet Jacobs. I was born in Ulster County, New York, US. A lot of life happened in between the dash for me listed on my tombstone. I experienced love and loss of my true love, Robert, a fellow slave with a terribly cruel master that tore our love, friendship, bond, and lives from us. When Robert tried to visit me on my plantation one night, I was sick. Robert got caught and beaten to the brink of death by his cruel master that didn't want us together as a couple. My master was not as cruel and had to remove them from his land to stop the beating, but they continued to beat Robert as they left the land. I feared for him. Though I never saw Robert again, Our love was a powerful driving force. It bore witness to my spirit to be free. A free woman was everything on that day. The spirit fueled my desire for freedom from slavery, not just for me, but for all slaves. I conducted my life according to this belief, and the power of spirit and infinite intelligence led me onward in my cause. Within 3 months after this beating happened to Robert, my master chose a new husband for me, Thomas. We married, during the marriage, I birthed 5 children, 4 girls and 1 son, Peter. We faced so many separations and evil perils as slave families. Luckily, I had the power of spirit within my bosom to move me forward in the right direction, the spirit which inspired me and led me into safety in 1826 when I ran from my master's plantation and gained my freedom. The power of spirit which helped me find the correct assistance from the Munsons to sue in court for the return of my son Peter because he was sold illegally to another state. And slavery was abolished in New York in 1826. And even though I could not read or write, I won the lawsuit with the help of my Quaker friends and the Munsons, an establishment of white folk that helped us when we ran to freedom. They found us work and gave us food and shelter until we could provide for ourselves. I was so blessed to know them. I won the lawsuit and Peter was returned to my home. Sadly, 3 years later, while working as a merchant marine, he never returned home. No one ever did find out what happened to Peter, although we can assume a lot. A loss like Robert's was never forgotten, and the spirit led me to present powerful speeches which turned the hearts of all who heard them against slavery and in favor of women's rights. I sustained myself by selling my photos for $5. This was such a popular word spread throughout the whole counties that during the year 1864, a meeting was arranged for me to meet with President Abraham Lincoln. This was a highlight of my life. I, a freed woman, got to meet with the President of the United States. Abe Lincoln signed me a picture, and I also gave him one of mine. On mine, he signed for anti-sojourn truth, Abe Lincoln. What a blessing our meeting was to discuss ways to help me end slavery and the U.S. and slavery and inhumane treatment of freed slaves. My journey through life led me to Hydesville, where with the help of my friends, the Quakers, I bought a house and lived among fellow spiritualists. Harriet Jacobs helped me to write my biography. I dictated it to her. Yes, I am a woman, a spiritualist. I use my voice to preach against inhumanity and cruelty of slavery. I am an abolitionist and a suffragette with the women's rights movements. First and foremost, I am a woman. I'm not going to die. I'm going home like a shooting star. Truth is powerful and it prevails. Religion without humanity is very poor human stuff. The rich rob the poor and the poor rob one another. I did go home, November 26, 1883, Battle Creek, Michigan. My belief in afterlife keeps me moving forward. And here I am today, visiting you in the year 2021. Thank you for listening to my story. May we always have a free world. Freedom! 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 Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing your story with us. We have another time traveler with us. Some of you may be familiar with Andrew Jackson Davis, so give me a moment.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me come here today. I'm excited because this is the day that I woke up and decided to write in my journal what I received while waking up, with that warm breath that so many on the earlier talks today have talked about, that warm breath. The good work has begun, brother. A living demonstration was born. As the Fox sisters and the family, knowing that they are bringing spiritualism and modern spiritualism forward for us all, I felt that a new thing was happening. I grew up poor and was very shy because of the connection my mother and I had to the parapsychic. But eventually, thanks to memorism, I broke free of my chains of the physical world and started to communicate with the spiritual world. I could also see bodies in a transparent fashion that also made an etheric connection to nature so that I may see what a medical diagnosis could be for healing of these people. There were a few spirits that worked with me for healings and to give me lectures. Galen, a Greek physician, Emerald Swingenborg. These were all very educated people. I was not. I was not educated. I did not know these things that they told me about, that I was able to bring back. I would have people write these down, these wonderful words that these spirits would give to me. I was known as during this time as the Poughkeepsie Seer, a name that I grew to like. Not something I really wanted. I didn't want the fame. Just like the Fox family, it's not easy to be able to stand forth and have these wonderful gifts that not everybody sees as wonderful or a gift. But because of them, because of many different spirits that gave me strength, Galen gave me the magical staff. With this staff, we have something to lean on as spiritualists, to be strong, just like the Fox family. Finally, I also started the Lyceum for the future of spiritualism. Today, I want to talk about needing during this time. I feel that this time is another moment, just like when the Fox family came forward, that we need to work with future little people, teach them the wonderful gifts that Spirit has with us, so that we may become between Summerland and the physical, so that we can walk this plane, help those heal, help bring love to the future, be part of Summerland, talk to Spirit, teach the little ones that they can also do these wonderful gift things, that the little ones, when they see and you hear them talking about their invisible friends, take them forward. It is well worth their time to talk to Spirit. They will teach us as we teach them. Much love. Thank you so much for celebrating today. The Fox family, my love, my heart. As spiritualism grows forward, many blessings.
Thank you so much for joining us. We will definitely be rereading your many 26 books, etc., at some point. So now we're going to welcome our next time traveler, Emma Hardinge Britton. Emma Hardinge Britton. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I was on this physical plane from 1823 to 1899. Once introduced to spiritualism, I developed the gifts of psychometry, healing, inspirational speaking, and automatic writing. Well, I wrote quite a bit. I am most remembered for the writings Modern American Spiritualism, Ghostland, and I founded the magazine Two Worlds, which is still published today. Imagine that. I was part of something so wonderful, and I don't regret a moment of it, for I contributed to the spread of the truth that life continues and that women deserve and are capable of having an equal voice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Emma. So we have one more time traveler that is coming here today, and I will let Ellen share with you Reverend Bertha Creer.
Hello, I am Reverend Bertha Creer. I was born in South Charleston, Ohio. My parents migrated here around 1870 from Kentucky. I became a spiritualist around 1908, and in 1914, I opened my own spiritualist church called the Christian Spiritualist Church in Columbus, Ohio. During that time, I served in many ways in the spiritualist organization, the National Spiritualist Association. I served many churches. I did mediumship readings and galleries for various different venues. One of them, which I thought was exciting, was I was a test medium for the opening of a spiritualist movie, at least they called it a spiritualist movie at the time, The Hushed Hour, at a theater in Cleveland, Ohio, where after the movie concluded, me and another medium gave messages from spirit loved ones to those who were present in the audience. We also made ourselves available by appointment only, which they made at the ticket theater booth, in which they could set up private one-on-one readings with us. I believe that was an enjoyable time of mine. However, I was really dedicated to being a spiritualist. In 1922, as one of 4 missionaries, I had the opportunity to travel to London, England, for the International Congress of Spiritualism. While I was there, I tested successfully and became the first Black woman and American to receive a diploma as message bearer from the Spiritualist National Union. Upon my return from England in 1923, I was ordained by the National Spiritualist Association and would be known throughout till the rest of my days in 1927, which is when I made my transition, as Reverend Bertha Creer. Highfield Day is important to me, for if those young ladies had not heard the rappings, we would not have spiritualism, modern American spiritualism. Thank you for listening.
Wow, that was wonderful, wasn't it? Let me tell you about our volunteer actors. Cora Richmond was portrayed by Reverend Lorraine Radis, NST, certified medium, who is the pastor of the Church of Spiritual Growth, NSAC, in Burlington, Massachusetts. Thank you for joining us and portraying Cora Richmond. Sojourner Truth was portrayed by Mary Ann Colt from the Spiritualist Desert Church in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Andrew Jackson Davis was portrayed by Darren Ford, who is a student minister, and he is also the board president of Love of Spirit Spiritualist Church, NSAC, in Bloomington, Normal, Illinois. And so we're very glad to have had him as well. And Emma Hardinge Britton, which many of you know came from England to become an actress, only to get snagged into this spiritualism thing by her roommate. She was portrayed by Reverend Jean Mandeville, commissioned, certified medium, commissioned healer, and she is with the First Spiritualist Church of Willimantic, Connecticut. And our last time traveler was portraying the Reverend Bertha Creer, who was a message bearer certified from the SNU and an NSAC missionary. She was portrayed by Siobhan Carlson, National Spiritualist teacher, certified medium, commissioned healer from the First Spiritualist Church of West Allis, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So let's give everybody a round of applause for being brave enough to volunteer. So yeah, you do the hand clap with your reactions. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate that because I know that we have never done anything like that, so it was brave of you to volunteer. Does anyone have any questions for our historians before they take back to their time zone, their year? You can put up your virtual hand or maybe we can see you if you wave your hand. Any questions? I would like to ask Andrew Jackson Davis. I know you predicted the planet Pluto. Were you upset when they defrocked Pluto and said it wasn't a planet?
Well, it's still there, isn't it? We know it to be true. My thing is to always bring truth forward. So,
Well, and I understand Voyager took some pictures and actually proved it was a planet, so you are vindicated in your prophecy.
well, thank you very much.
Anyone else have any questions? Well, if we don't have any questions, I just want to thank everybody for volunteering and for staying with us. We have just a couple of minutes. I don't know if we have an update on our donations. Hopefully we'll get one very soon. But I do want to encourage everyone to give as much as you can. And I think it is really neat to get one of those inscribed pavers. When we were working on this project, they were sending me pictures and things, and I looked really closely and I thought, oh, and I saw the brick that I had inscribed for my mother like 6 years ago and never even thought about it. And it was in one of the pictures. And of course, I thought, how perfect was that? So a really neat way to put a dedication to your church or a loved one, either in spirit, or maybe even a pioneer that you admire and you just want to put a paver in there for Andrew Jackson Davis or Emma Hardinge Britton. And, for a $50 donation, that's pretty easy to do. And I also wanted to say, if you make a donation, either for the endowment fund or for the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund, if you would, because we're trying to keep a tally and it's not an exact science, but if you feel like you don't mind it being public, I thought you could perhaps put it in the chat. I just donated $100, and if you want to make a dedication, you could say in honor of your significant other or your church or something, and let us know. That way we can keep a running tab if it was for the endowment or for the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund. And you can just put it in the chat. Now, if you want it to be private, just send it directly and by itself to the host, and it'll remain anonymous. Otherwise, you can kind of dedicate your donation to somebody and we'll all get to see it. So that'll be kind of a fun way for us to see how we're going. So we're trying to put 48 birthday candles on the cake. Each candle is $1,000. Ellen, do you know if we've gotten up to the 5th candle yet?
I believe we have. I'm not sure because I haven't heard from Joanne or anyone else, but I believe I heard somebody saying that we hit the 5,000. We're very close to it.
Well, then so, say
let's celebrate,
right? Let's put up the cake. Let's put up the cake for a minute.
Okay. All righty. Let me get that up for you. Go find that picture. Just keep talking and I'm going to get that picture up in a moment.
We thought a birthday cake would be the perfect symbol for our fundraiser because it is the birth of intelligent communication with the spirit world, and because this really is a fun day. And we've just been so excited. I mean, I was like the kid couldn't sleep because they were going to Disney World the next day last night. I'm too excited to sleep. So I want everyone to feel that excitement, that love and energy, and especially having people from all over the world here joining with us to celebrate. I know it's going to get late at night and they're going to have to go to sleep at some point, but I'm so happy to have everyone here celebrating with us because, Hydesville Memorial Park, it's every spiritualist heritage. It belongs to all of us. And, it's almost 3 acres. Hopefully there'll be a time next year where we can all go there to visit. But until then, it's really neat that we are able to come together virtually and to celebrate virtually the birth of modern spiritualism and to do it together. And I hope that we'll continue to have hybrid celebrations for future years. So that we can continue to bring people in from all across the world.
Okay, so let's celebrate by bringing in another $1,000. Here we go. Woohoo! And I will put up, but keep donating and we will keep counting. Thank you.
I just see a big $100 donation just came in. So
Oh, nice.
all we need are 9 more, and you can keep that 6th candle on the cake.
Yep. We're going to make it before the end. I know it. That and more.
So that is super exciting. And one really neat thing that Ellen and I got to participate in is that we had the opportunity to interview some spiritualists who have made contributions to the movement. And we are going to share some of those interviews with you today. So I think we have time to have an interview before our 4:30 presentation on the Fox Sister Schoolhouse. So are we ready to hear from Reverend June Kilmer?
Sure. Let me find Reverend June Kilmer, and we can put up.
And if we can put that donation link back in the chat, I want to encourage people, to specify if you donated for the endowment fund or the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund. They're all important. So we call this little segment Spiritualist Historical Sidebar Interview. So we're going to hear now from Reverend June Kilmer.
I'm June Kilmer. I'm the pastor of the Circle of Love Spiritualist community in Auburn, California. I am a trustee on the board of directors of the National Spiritualist Association of Churches and president of the Morris Pratt Institute.
So what brought you to spiritualism, and how long have you been a spiritualist?
I guess I could say I was born into spiritualism. I'm a 4th generation spiritualist. And you might think that sounds interesting, and there's quite a story behind it. Because my great-grandparents lived in a spiritualist colony in Germany. And so my grandfather was raised in that colony, is what they called it. And then he later married a very good German Lutheran girl, and vowed that spiritualism would never be spoken in the home. Well, that went along for several years until my father started saying things sort of out of the blue. And one day they were, his mother and the children were out for a walk, and he asked who those people were on the other side of the street. And there was no one on the other side of the street. And then at another time, he just out of the blue, on another time when they were going for a walk, out of the blue, he said, "Pa's gonna go to America, and then he's gonna bring us there." And that had not been spoken of in the home, but that is exactly what happened later on. So my grandmother would become disturbed with these things, and my grandfather would say to her, "There's nothing I can do about it. This is a God-given gift. This is natural." So it caused a little disturbance in the family for a while. But what did happen was, yes, his father did come to America, to Chicago. And I always felt, I was born and raised in Chicago also, and I felt like Chicago was as much a melting pot as New York City. And so the many different nationalities that came predominantly from Europe had their communities where they lived, their stores, etc., their churches. And my father's family went to a German Lutheran church. Services were in German and in English. But what happened, he used to say they spent Sunday in church. There'd be the morning service. In the evening, there was the Young People's Alliance, I think it was called. So there were quite a few things going on during the day. But my father started sneaking away and made a deal with his brothers and sisters when they were going to this Young People's Alliance, that they would meet him in front of the house and they all go back in the house together. And he was sneaking away to a spiritualist service that he had heard about. One Sunday, he did not get home on time. And so his siblings went in without him. And typical of the old German family, you know, wait till your father comes home. So his father came home and never said a word to him for almost a week. So the suspense was killing. And when he did say something the following Saturday, his father said to him, "So I understand you've been going to a spiritualist church." And my father said, "Yes, but if you don't want me to, I will not go." And my grandfather replied in German, "Ich gehe mit," which means "I will go with you." So that was quite surprising to my father, and that's exactly what happened. And the entire service was in German. And so when they had, when they would sing the songs or sing the hymns, my grandfather appeared to know these hymns, and my father thought, "What is this?" And my grandfather was given a spirit reading or a message, whatever we would call it, and he answered appropriately, and that was quite shocking to my father as well. So when they walked home that night, my grandfather explained to him that he had been raised as a spiritualist, and that if my father wanted to attend the spiritualist services, it was all right with him, but he was not to take his siblings. So that's how he got involved, and it just went on and on from there.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. So can you tell us about your contributions to spiritualism?
Well, I've been involved in the local church, of course. I was basically born and raised in the Church of the Spirit in Chicago. And then we later, after I'd married and my husband was transferred to California, so we spent about 10 years in Southern California in 2 locations, and then moved to Northern California, where I am now. I was, being the preacher's daughter, I was always involved in the church in Chicago. I taught Lyceum. When I came home from college, I became more involved with it, and we had 4 teenage girls that were involved in the Lyceum. And then the women who had been social chairman of the church and who would run the dinners and so forth, one had moved to Florida and the other had moved to California. So I don't know, all I can say is I think I had a lot of nerve in those days, and I started running the dinners, and the 4 girls in the Lyceum were the waitresses. And we, did more and more to get social activities going in the church as well. And then when my husband and I were dating, my husband and I also met in the church. He started attending there when he was 13 years old. And so we kind of formed a youth group there where they could have some activities on a Friday evening. Later in the 80s, I was appointed the superintendent of lyceums. It's what it was called then. So I did that for quite a few years. Then we moved to California, and as I said, and we were attending a church, and then we had some people that were encouraging us to start a new church. So we did form a new church in Auburn, California, called the Circle of Love Spiritualist Community. So I was a charter member there, and that church is still going. And I'm very much looking forward to the day right now that we can start having services again at church instead of, having Zoom meetings. I was elected to the board of directors of the National Spiritualist Association of Churches and serve as a trustee on that board. And I've been a member of Morris Pratt Institute for many years. My father had been the president of the Morris Pratt Institute, so I was doing graduate work at Northwestern in the area of guidance and counseling, and predominantly in assessment. And he got me involved with things with Morris Pratt. And that has been a pleasure to work in that area. So I'm still doing that.
Well, our next question is, what does Hydesville Day represent to you? Our celebration of Hydesville Day.
Well, the birth of spiritualism, of course. And it was made a little more personal to me. I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that they did move the Fox Cottage from Hydesville to Lilydale, to the Lilydale Spiritualist Camp. And when I was a very young child, my father had a contract with Lilydale to serve the camp for 2 weeks. And I was able to go to Lilydale with my family. And I was able to go into the Fox Cottage. I don't remember a lot about it, but I know that Flo Cottrell was the woman who was there at the cottage. And I know they used to say she was a rapping medium. That's the only time I've heard that term used. And so I still remember just going in there. I don't remember much about it other than the fact that they used to talk about the rapping post. I don't know if you've heard that. And there was a large post, what can you call it? A very large post that was hanging from the rafters. They had it hanging in the Fox Cottage. So I assume that had been in the original Fox Cottage, somewhere in there, that was of some importance. As I say, I was a young child. I don't remember a lot more, but that was a special occasion for me. And now that I look back, I think, wow. And I think I cried when I heard that it burned down.
Wow. Thank you for that bit of history. The names are starting to come and appear, and it's nice to get that link, and hear some more, even more in-depth history. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite spiritual experience that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, that was my favorite. The fact of going there.
Okay. Let's see. We've got another question as well. How does spirit communication, proven through mediumship, enhance your life?
It's nice to have the proof of the continuity of spirit, the fact that we do go on. My parents are both in spirit, as you would well know. And then my husband has passed to spirit 2 years ago. So it's nice to know that they can contact us. and that we can learn more from them about what the spirit world is like. So that's been interesting and comforting.
One of the questions we've been asking people is, in your opinion, what are some things we can do to enhance spiritualism today?
Well, I wish we could do more to increase attendance in our churches, and that the people would see the value in that. I'm so thankful we have such a faithful, yes, it's a small group, but such a faithful group. And they missed going to church so much. There's a small group that was even meeting on Tuesday mornings in somebody's backyard and social distancing just to keep that contact. So I think that's important. Inviting friends, in particular, to special events that we have. One of the things too, I think we could do more is advertise our special events. We don't seem to do a lot of outside advertising. We had an interesting experience in that we were having a special event, and with a special guest, and we advertised. We sent, our president of the church board actually sent it to a couple of the small town neighboring town newspapers, and this went on the front page of one of the small newspapers. So here we were. It was Robin Hodson was coming, the president of the Spiritualist Federation of Spiritualist Churches, and his picture was on the front page of this small town newspaper. So maybe we need to do things like this more often. We need to do things we can to encourage our membership. I'd love to see our membership grow. People we do have seem to be extremely faithful followers.
So it's a good segue to our next question. Is in 2021, we're now celebrating 173 years of modern spiritualism. So where do you see spiritualism growing in our future? Maybe another 173 years from now.
Well, I hope we have a stronger, larger group of spiritualists, of believers. Those who stick to our principles, don't dilute them or go in different directions. So that, those principles that were developed and followed by our pioneers will still be relevant and important to our followers. I think that would be my hope. We'll see what happens. I guess I'll be watching from the other side to see what's happening.
Wow, wasn't that great? I mean, I just love sitting down and hearing these wonderful stories that people have to share with us. Because it's sort of like if you've only been in one part of the country, you haven't met certain people, and through Zoom, now we're getting to meet people from all over, and it really is kind of exciting. And especially to sort of share these stories that maybe, you didn't hear because you don't live where that person lives that's had that firsthand experience. And, very interesting that she is the president of MPI, the very position that her father held. So keeping that spiritualism in the family. And I really loved what she said about passing it on to the next generation. And so speaking of passing it on to the next generation, we have had a couple of people do some pledges. I saw some dedications going into the chat, and we've also had some private direct to our host donations, people who want to stay anonymous, to the tune of, we've had an individual donate $2,000, and then to match that, another individual has pledged and has donated, not pledged, they've already donated, it's gone ching, another $2,000. So we can actually put some more candles on the cake. And I think we've had another $200 that has come in on the chat. So 8 more $100 donations, and we'll put another candle on the cake. So let's put some candles on the cake.
You got it.
So does that bring us to 7 candles?
I think we're up to 9. I'm
Are
keeping
we?
it. Yes, I am keeping a tally on my calculator and
Okay.
on paper. And right now I'm already seeing 9,475.
Excellent.
So we got 1,
Excellent.
2, 3,
Okay.
4, 5, 6, 7. Let's grab 2 more. We're going to load this cake up until
when
you
we-
can't see it anymore.
When we have $48,000, we won't see the cake. That'll be a shame. 'Cause
Well,
it's a
yeah.
beautiful cake. A beautiful
Well, I
cake.
can lower them a little bit, but yeah, we're going to get there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And I have to tell you, unfortunately, everyone, the seance is now sold out. But there are still opportunities to give. If it's not apparent to you the difference, the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund is for the general maintenance. It's kind of the money we need right away. And basically, you know, it's like $30 a month to pay the electric. And when visitors go there, there is no running plumbing. So we rent the little porta potties, and that's $630 for the year. And the landscaping, the mowing, that's $4,000 a year. We are looking, though, at replacing the roof, because that one has been on there over 25 years. And so that is, we're looking at estimates about $15,000. And some of the wood needs to be repaired and stained. We've gotten an estimate of around $5,000. We unfortunately also have woody woodpecker damage, about $5,000 in damage from very boisterous woodpeckers. And we need to get some resetting of some of the bricks. It's another like $1,500. So that's why we set our Fox Cottage preservation goal for $48,000. We want to be able to get those things done. We want to be able to get the benches installed. Those are engraved benches for a $2,500 donation. You can have a bench engraved, as well as those pavers, which range between $50 and $1,000 donations. And all of them are I believe you can put up to, like, say, 12 characters per line, maybe like 3 lines with 12 characters. So please consider a paver or just a donation to the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund. That's our immediate need. But the endowment fund, the beauty of the endowment fund is that because of this generous matching gift, she is, if we raise of course we will, $18,480, she's going to match that dollar for dollar. And that is going to set up a beautiful endowment fund. And eventually, as we add to that endowment fund, we'll start to get interest from it. So the idea of the endowment fund is that you never touch the principal, but you use the interest to fund the kind of things that we're doing right now with the maintenance fund. So both of these are important donations to make, and we encourage you, perhaps you can donate to both of them. Now the pavers, that goes to the general maintenance fund. So when you donate, be sure to indicate if it's for the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund or if it's for the endowment fund. Again, they're both super important. And when you click on the chat, maybe you can put that up again, Ellen, for the donations. When you click on the chat, you see there's options of where you can mark that your donation is for the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund, or you can mark it's for the endowment fund. Again, we have a matching gift, so we definitely want to meet that match. So hopefully it'll happen today. Let's just use the law of attraction and bring it in. If you have friends who aren't with us today, they're at work, send them a text. copy the link that's in the chat and send it to them and say, you know, we are calling on you, spiritualists, to make this happen and to preserve our history. So I'm going to stop yakking for a little bit because I want to get ready. We have a very special guest with us today, and I will read her bio, but I just have to say, before I do, this is a woman that walks her talk. From the moment I met her, gosh, probably 20 years ago, I was so impressed with how centered she was, how connected she was to spirit, and how she just listened to spirit and did what she felt called to do. And, you know, of course, I'm calling on you to make donations if you can, and follow your heart and follow spirit. And our next guest today is the Reverend Janet Nohavec. And again, from the minute I met her, I was so impressed with her ability to have a vision and to set things in motion and to be led by spirit. So she's going to join us in just a couple of minutes. So we have just a few minutes for you to keep donating. Please don't stop donating. Just keep donating. And again, she's just a wonderful woman that I'm just so privileged to have met and have been able to visit online. I'm sure a lot of you have gone to different places online. So let me tell you a little bit about Reverend Janet Nohavec. Janet is internationally known for her evidential mediumship. She is an approved overseas tutor for the prestigious Arthur Findlay College in Stansted, England. Janet has been recognized as a pioneer in the field of mediumship and afterlife communication. And for over 30 years, she has stood for the proof of continuity of life before it was popular. Over 10,000 private sessions, over 1,000 public demonstrations of mediumship, and countless charity events. Few mediums have her knowledge bases and compassion. And that's so true. She is a former Roman Catholic nun. I'm getting a little choked up because I'm so impressed with her. She has been featured exclusively on television, radio, and in the printed press. Her evidential form of mediumship has been researched by several university groups. Janet's private practice and church are based in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. Janet is also an author, and one of her books is called Through the Darkness. And her autobiography, Where Two Worlds Meet, is a book on the development of mediumship. And so you can find out more about Janet by going to her website, Janet Nohavec, Nohavec, janetnohavec.com. So Janet is here to give us a presentation on her efforts to restore the Fox Sisters' original schoolhouse. So I'm so delighted to introduce and present our friend, Janet Nohavec.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful to be with you here. In a little bit, I'm going to attempt to share a screen. So it worked an hour and a half again, so I'm hoping I can do it. Lovely to be with you all. This is congratulations to all of you for pulling off this really massive endeavor. I know how much work this takes, so it's fantastic. And I just make my donation, so I'll be sharing that on all of our pages as well. So really very worthy project and fantastic programming. So I'll tell you how I got involved with the schoolhouse. I'm probably an unlikely spiritualist. I know there's a book, The Unlikely Martyrs, but I was probably an unlikely spiritualist, a former Roman Catholic nun. Saw spirit as a child, didn't know what it was, petrified of it because we saw my grandfather who committed suicide. And of course, in the Catholic faith, that meant they were doomed to roam the earth, dragging their chained ankles for all of eternity. And how sad that is that anyone would say that. And my very superstitious mother, who figured if he's turning up, it can't be good, this grandfather. So after I left the convent, I met a medium, and that medium directed me to Lilydale, where I went. And I read the book, The Rock of Truth, from Arthur Finley, which I felt was, this is heresy. This book is heresy. I shouldn't read this book. This is scandalous, you know. Oh my God, what's God going to say about this? And, you know, it began an eye-opening journey that I think was part of the story. And I actually think being a Roman Catholic nun was part of the story, because there are a lot of people who will come to me that would not approach any of this if I didn't have that as part of the history. So from there, began to develop my mediumship. Was told by the Lilydale medium that I was to go to England, not to develop here. So that actually came from someone in Lilydale, a registered medium who's passed away now. And never flew, found my way to England. And I actually think it's all part of a story, because, you know, a couple of years ago, as we began the First World Congress in Lilydale, it was an attempt to bring the world back together for right reasons, you know, for all of us, because we won't survive if we don't stick together. It's really important. Started my church in New Jersey, associated to the Spiritualist National Union, which felt like the right decision. And I still think that's all part of the plan too. And it thrived, you know, mostly because of a man who received a message from his deceased daughter, and it changed his very staunch Catholic beliefs to believing that she still visits him and hears him and visits, and, you know, takes him sometimes to visit with her. And he gave us $500,000 to build the church we're in here in New Jersey. And that was going along fine. And I have my house in Lilydale, and everything was great. And many of you remember and still know Ann Gaiman. And probably 25 years ago, Ann Gaiman said, you know, there's a little schoolhouse right up the street from the Hydesville Cottage. You don't want to get involved in that. And I said, no, Ann, no, I don't think that's part of my story, Ann. Nope, don't want to get involved with the schoolhouse. And then years passed, I have to say, and years passed, and I always wanted a retreat house. I always wanted a retreat house. I wanted a spiritualist retreat house. So I prayed, and I would travel and look, throw it outside the Lilydale gates, and years had gone on. And I, when we did the first Congress, we planted a little tree. All of us that came from the other organizations, Cozy Allen was there, Stephen Upton was there. There was a whole busload of us at the Fox property, and there's a sapling that's planted there that day to kind of reinvigorate spiritualism. And it's thriving. Thank God the tree is thriving, because I've kept an eye on it, I have to say. And while I was there, probably a couple months, I went back to check on the tree. And I'm still praying, you know, where should I look for the retreat house? And I took a picture. I'm going to try and do this. I hope to God it works. I took a picture of something that I saw inside the cottage. And if you're a nun, you're into signs. Nuns look for signs. And very Polish girls like me, we look for signs too. So I'm just going to try and hopefully get this so I can share it. So I took a picture, and in the photo from the cottage, this first, if I can get it up, sorry. I promise as I go on, it will be less of a struggle. Try that again. It's a picture of the wreath that was put in the Fox Cottage. Ugh, I'll try again to get it up. It's a picture of a wreath, and I'll try and get it up for you. And it's got an impression of an image of almost a man next to the wreath. But the image, and this is an all glass enclosure, I have to say, is of not the wreath, and then almost a lit up aspect of a man shape that has the pathway in the rear. So somehow there's a superimposition of something that shouldn't be in the photo. And I said, oh, that's kind of odd. And when I open all the photos, then I'll make sure you see them. I was like, that's kind of odd. That's some sort of, almost looks like Andrew Jackson Davis to me. And I was like, that's really odd. So I was up for a couple days up in that way, and still praying. I need a sign. I really could use a sign, you know. And I came back the next day, and above the Fox cottage, an airplane had made a big X in the sky. And I've got a picture of that here too. And I'm saying, well, you can't get much clearer than that. Big X in the sky above the Fox cottage. And, you know, I said, that's really interesting. And the girl who had the schoolhouse, who had purchased it at auction from the town, had wanted to make this a spiritualist place. She is a spiritualist. She's local. She's still involved. She's a lovely woman named Ruth. And she called me out of the blue, you know, 20 years later, probably, than Ann Gaiman had talked to me, and said, if you don't do something with this building as a spiritualist center, it's going to become a bar or an antique center. And because I had the signs, I prayed harder. And I said, well, if I can find someone to give us the money, because I don't have it, we'll do it. And didn't someone come with the money to purchase the schoolhouse? So I said, well, this is interesting. Now, I had taken a really ramshackled house in Lilydale and turned it into a beautiful house. So I know you can rehab almost anything. So I said, went home, I said, I wonder if there's a church for sale in Newark, New York. And isn't there a little church for sale in Newark, New York? And I said, wouldn't it be good to have a spiritualist church back in Newark, New York? And we could use, once the schoolhouse is turned into a healing temple, we can use the church as well. And Mavis Patilla comes into the story at that time, because we used to make our road trips up to Lilydale, and we always passed the Fox Cottage. And so we started to pray at the schoolhouse, and we went over to the property where the church was for sale. It was a very Christian man. We weren't sure that this was going to go through. We actually put a couple things on the property, superstitious as we are, hoping to bring it to us. And didn't they accept the offer? And didn't someone give us the money for the down payment to the church in Newark, New York? So we're just kind of the worker bees for a bigger project that I think the spirit world has in mind. And that's what we're doing for the promulgation of the religion of spiritualism, and for no other reason. So we went back again. We were probably on our way back from Lilydale to New Jersey, and we stopped at the property, and the pastor was there. And we went into the basement, and we talked to him for a moment, and Mavis was there. And I said, would you like to pray? So we all joined hands with this very Christian pastor and his wife. And we didn't know at that moment, but he was dying. And the last thing that took place was he was buried from our church now in Newark, New York. We allowed him to hold the services. So that takes us to where we are. So I'm going to begin to attempt to, once I get the hang of it, it'll go quicker. So we purchased the property, the schoolhouses. So we got the schoolhouse, the sale went through. We decided, we sent someone to check the foundation because we weren't going to take it if the foundation was completely unstable. That was checked. The basement part was in good stead. So we went ahead. We also felt that if you couldn't put a bathroom on the property, which was very important and still is, it would change the scheme of the development of the plan greatly. So we hired an engineer who sent out, to do whatever they do in the ground testing We've been very involved with conversation with the local code officials because we want to be. So he said, so we hired the engineer who did the ground test, and a septic system was approved. The first thing we did was hire a mason for $38,000 to shore up the decay of the walls that were crumbling, big holes in the sides and such. And then once that was done, it was suggested we tend to the roof, which had the potential for collapse, which would then stop interior destruction of the building. So we did the roof. All along, we're doing small fundraisers, big fundraisers, any fundraisers, GoFundMe pages, anything we could. And just kept saying this it'll cost for this, and this is what it could cost for that. We have a wonderful relationship with a lot of American and British mediums who have really stepped up to our plate. So we got the roof done. We then got someone did not do us a favor at the schoolhouse because I believe in 1960, someone attempted to put a second floor apartment in, which we thought was going to be great for us. But as time went on, the height was not big enough to sustain from the code official in town a second floor apartment. So that is not going to be able to be used. It'll be finished off, but it's not going to be able to be an apartment. So that changed that scheme of things on that. But because he put it in there, to rip it out would have brought the walls in. So we've had to allow that to remain where it is. So as we've gone along, we've hit different things. So we finished the dormer windows. We finished the facing where the bell was, and that looked quite good. We then went to order new windows. There's new doors. The plans are now we've encountered people that will not come back to the project. We've had an engineer who came to make sure the property was stable, what kind of beams I would need to put up to keep it stable when people enter. When he found out we were spiritualists, he wouldn't come back to the job site. We've had contractors who've come out to bid it, who found out we were spiritualists, who won't come back. So still in the area, there are those who are not in support of what we do, or are spooked. It is what it is. We've been as honest with everybody as we go, and maybe they're not the right contractor. So we just got to look at it that way. And I'm an optimist, and so it is. But we have encountered that quite a bit there, I have to say. The press has been great to us up there. So the last thing we've done now, nope, that's not true. The septic system was installed. That's been put in. There was a massive amount of old growth trees, unhealthy, encroaching in the foundation of the building. So that's been all taken down now. We are at final architect plans for the development of the remainder of the project, detailed completely inside. It cannot be an establishment where 100 people are going to park a car. They won't allow it to go forward. So anything we've had to do to adjust to scale for it to be appropriate is what we've done. Because there, as anyone knows, you can't put a building, that's very small and say you're going to park 1,000 cars there. They're not going to pass it. So we want a spiritualist structure there. So we've scaled it to what it should appear to be like. It will be a healing temple. And everything on it will be in honor of the pioneers of spiritualism. And it will be done beautifully as it's finished. So final architectural plans are due within 2 weeks. They will go for sign off to the town, which I don't think we will have an issue with. they will issue a permit based on how much more it will cost us. I originally thought that this would cost $225 to $250. We're now at $325 probably. We've raised $147,000. We're on the verge, and I'm not going to say anything about it, of the potential of someone significantly helping with some of the costs that remain. But because we've done what we've done so far, I have no doubt we're going to complete this project. You know, it just, you know, every week there's a couple different demonstrations. Sunday night, there was a demonstration with James Van Prague and myself. Nobody takes any money. I mean, even big names have helped us with this. That brought in $4,000. Suzanne Giesman, who wrote my book, did a trance demonstration that it brought in $16,000 in 2 hours. I mean, there are people stepping up for this in the right, you know, it makes me want to cry. They're doing it for the right reason. And a massive amount of people have done that, you know, over and over and over. And, you know, they'll do another one. We contacted a trance medium who is not a spiritualist. But I said, well, there could be some trance mediums that aren't spiritualists. And he knew who we were. And he did one, and that was $9,000 that came in. So, you know, people have been really willing to help. And it's really just for kind of a breath in the area to renew spiritualism. And my hopes are that someday, you know, in that region, I hope before I pass to the spirit world, you know, when Highsville Day comes, there's going to be thousands of people there. That's my hope in the area again. The third sign is, when I was a Catholic nun, I used to be very devoted to St. Teresa, the Little Flower. And she's the one with the roses in her arms. So I said, well, dear God, it'd be really good if I had another sign as I'm doing this. And I stayed at the Newark Garden Hotel, and the man behind the counter there is a real chatterbox, I have to say. He used to actually own the other property on the corner. That is the other corner where Fox Cottage is. He's a lawyer. I came in and we got to talking about the area. He said, you don't know a lot about it. And I said, except, you know, for Highsville. He said, well, do you know that we were one of the biggest exporters of roses in the United States to the world? And I was like, oh my God, another sign. So if you're not into signs, you're not going to like my story, but call me crazy, I don't care. So I'm going to try and share some of the pictures. Pray for me while I try and do this. I think I have to do that. Maybe Robin can answer me. Do I share screen first, or do I put the picture up from the bottom first?
Let me help you, guide you through it. All right. So are your pictures up on your computer?
My pictures are all lined up along the bottom.
Okay. They should be visible to you on your desktop or screen itself before you do a share screen.
I'm just trying to move this one over so I can see my share screen again.
Okay.
Let me just try and minimize this. And then I'll just go to all pictures, everybody.
Okay.
I'm going to minimize this.
So once you hit the share screen button, you have to highlight the you know, what you want to share on your desktop, and then hit the little blue share screen button that's in the right bottom corner.
Okay, so this is the first one that I'll put up, and this is the one with the shadow next to the wreath that was left by one of the celebrations of the Congress there. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Great.
so I don't know how that little piece of the path that is not in the building ends up in the building, but if you enlarge this in a certain way, to me, we kept taking pictures, I have to say, of it. I'm saying, how the hell did the second in there? So that was my first sign, I have to say. I find these very interesting. I hope you do. So now there's just going to be random pictures as I try to do this. I'm sure there's other people that are much better than this. So as many of you know, there was a school on the property before this property, which dates to 1879. We also believe on this property, there was a little Methodist church on the schoolhouse grounds. So this, of course, will stay up in the corner of the property. You're seeing that one too, right? I think if it's highlighted green, I know you see it. I hope you're patient with me. So when I first walked inside the building, I have to say, you really couldn't walk in. This is the trees all being taken down, which needed to be taken down, particularly along the back, because that's going to provide us with 10 parking spots along the back into the quarry. Many of you know there's a quarry that's right there. So the way we can add the most pieces of parking is behind the place. There'll be a couple additional on the side. So, you know, we've had to provide that on the specs to the town. So hence the trees needed to come down, and they really were a threat to the building itself. So if you walk in most places of the building, you'll fall through the floor, still at the moment. This next one is the septic, part of the septic that was installed. So 2 bathrooms and a shower will be in it, which is fantastic. This is my X in the sky above Fox Cottage. When I say, where should I make my retreat house? So first there's the thing inside the cottage, then there's the X above the Fox Cottage. And then the man tells me, and I have a love of roses in St. Teresa, this town is known for the roses. And I was, you know, it just, to me, it just, certain things just say do it. This is more septic systems. So that wasn't a small project, which then ruined the whole lawn, which we've now had reseeded, I have to say. One gentleman helped, well, like I said, the money to purchase came from one gentleman who also gave us the deposit for the Newark church, spiritual church now that has, which is, like many of your churches, been closed for the pandemic. Thank you for being patient with my technological skills. This is inside at the minute. This is what it looks like inside at the minute. This next one is, there were a lot of squatters in the 60s in this property, and they built this little stove thing. That's how they were heating themselves in there. Someone did go as far to put a furnace in the bottom. The man that put the apartment upstairs did put a hot water heater. There's a very small basement which we've been advised not to touch because the foundation at that level is in really good shape. But there's been a lot of squatters in this property over the years. The really interesting part is some of the original blackboards are still inside, and we will keep some of that. On the outside of the building, in the original bricks, all along the side, little kids with either pebbles or little nails have written their initials into all the bricks. So I mean, this building could tell a story just like the other one could, I have to say, I'm sure. This was when the roof was done and the cupolas were done upstairs. And then where the bell was, we decided the bell would not go back in there. We do have the bell. It was kept by the woman who bought the property, who also preserved a really, really old map of the region and a few other artifacts. It was hoped, and I'm just going to raise this here. You never know someday, because I'd be happy when I'm done with this to start a fundraiser for the Fox Cottage to start a museum. And I'm sure I could enlist a lot of my friends to help you guys build a museum over on that piece of property. So in the name of spiritualism. So I'd be happy to help on that effort. There won't be room here. There'll be a pioneer's wall, so to keep it in scope with the size of the property, we know the town won't approve a museum unless we took that little garage and did something down the road. But, you guys have a lot of property over there, so maybe. And finally, we got new doors, new windows downstairs. So before that, anything could have gone in there and encroached it. So we've got keys to the building, and the new windows have been put in. So step by step, inch by inch, I have to say, it's moved along. That's where we are with it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take it. There's probably a few more pictures down there, but I'm not so good at putting in a PowerPoint. So I don't know if you would like to take a few questions, if anybody has any, Carol.
Sure. Does everyone know how to raise your hand? You go to the reactions button, and at the bottom there's something that says raise your hand. If you raise your hand, you'll float to the top and we'll see you. How far is the schoolhouse from the Fox Cottage?
Really, probably if we lined up 15 cars parked bumper to bumper, you would touch it, I would think. The best way I could explain it. It's probably somebody would know exactly how many feet, but in my envisioning of it, Mavis Patilla, I have to say, has been a great backbone in this project as well as many other people, but she is so on board. Her and Jean, I have to say, they're enthralled with this project and have been really tirelessly helpful as well. We have a talk coming up in 2 weeks, and every couple months we're doing something for the schoolhouse, but everybody is. I really have to say, so many people have come together for this project. We are definitely looking ahead at how to leave this, so once it's established, how it will continue to pay for itself, so it will remain what it is for hopefully a long time into the future as well. So
Cozy.
Hi, Cozy.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk and talking about the schoolhouse. I would say the schoolhouse is across the street, maybe three at the most 4 blocks up that street. It's very close. You can see it from the property. Yeah. There's a house on the other side of the schoolhouse, and Mr. Timerson, there was a man by the name of Mr. Timerson, who was a school teacher. He has since passed away, that used to protect the Hydesville property from kids going and playing on it and stuff. And in his school, in his class, he would talk about spiritualism and the property, the history of the property, because he knew John Drummond very, very well. So it's interesting how there were some people in town that wanted to destroy the Caldwaller Monument. So we took it from there to protect it and put it at the camp in Iowa. And since the park has started to build and grow and people have seen improvement, they're loving it. The town is just loving it. And the same with the schoolhouse. And as you can see, the monument was brought back and it's well protected now. So thank you, Janet, for all that you're doing for the schoolhouse and for spiritualism in general. Thank you so much.
And our little sapling tree that you were there to help put in is flourishing. So
I do have a picture of us standing by it. And that was such an incredible day.
It really was. So
thank you very much for including me in that.
I think the pioneers, I hope they're a little proud. That's all we can
They are very proud, believe me.
I believe that. And I believe that day you also did a trance talk. I believe that was that same day.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
It was wonderful. That first Congress, each of the Congresses have been fantastic. And the man who has now moved into that little house, I don't know how you find him, but he does watch for kids on our properties.
Yes, I had spoken with him shortly after he moved in, and he promised me he would take care of that property and make sure that no harm would come to it.
Yep, he does watch out for us, so it's a good thing. At least he's amicable to us. We could have a very different person in that property there.
Yes, yes.
And it has been said that given the right price, he would sell to a spiritualist. So who knows in the future what might happen there too. So.
That's a nice piece of property there as well.
Yes, it is. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cozy.
We have another question from Dawn. Let me see if I can, let's see, Dawn, if you start your video, I can highlight you. Or you can just unmute yourself, I think. Can you unmute yourself? Yes, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Oh, good evening. Happy Hydesville.
Happy Hydesville.
It's late here in London, England. My question to you is, you mentioned that some bricks had been engraved by little children.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if anybody had tried psychometrizing those bricks to see if they could find out who those children might have been.
Mm. I'm sure once we begin to be able to utilize the property, those kind of things are going to be happening quite a bit around there.
Yeah.
But at this point, I will say this. Tracy said this. There have been times where I sit on that property where I'm just transformed somewhere else. And, but it's in the burnt over district. The water runs into this area, and we're in the area of Sulphur Springs. And the oracles used to sit where there were sulfur springs. And next town over, the hospital actually advertises you are in the area of Sulphur Springs. So we are in a very unique position there. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's all coming down the road, I have to say. It's a very unique area there, I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope you put it on your bucket list.
Oh, 100%. 100%. God bless you. Thank you.
So I have a question.
Sure.
I'm wondering approximately how long do you think this project's going to take? When do you think you'd find the finish?
Based on a possible new announcement, that would be much sooner than later. So I'm not at liberty to. The other thing in that area, I have to say, as many of you know, people are on a building boom at their homes at the moment because they've been home in the pandemic. So as soon as I have that secure, so if I have to slowly raise the remainder, it's going to take me longer with a bit of everybody's intercession on our behalf a bit sooner. And, you know, I think the sooner it has great potential at the minute. So my wildest dream would be the end of the year.
Wow.
My possible hope is next Hydesville. Possible, because we really do want Mavis Patilla, who is very been dedicated to this project, to be there for the dedication of this building, along, of course, with Christine and anyone else who wants to be there.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's we just keep, you know, pushing it along. So I think what we're still doing in a pandemic, the amount of money we're still raising in a pandemic, is just, you know, it's outstanding. There's no other word for it. So those are my timelines at the best.
Yeah.
You know? If you know, there's also shortage of certain building things, you know, in certain areas because of the pandemic as well. So a lot of things depend on a lot of things, but we've waited quite a while for the architectural plans to be completed. There was a delay of 3 months with that, but we liked the company that we were using, so we waited it out. So the next piece will be the rest of the funds secured. We don't have to wait to start. We have money in the bank at the minute. But if God's going to provide the new path, you'll see a kind of spectacular announcement via Facebook if everything comes together in a good way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Such great work.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
With a lot of help from our friends, like the Joe Cocker song. We
Yeah.
couldn't do it. But really, I have to say, without all of them, nameless amount of mediums and people that have stepped up, you know, American and British and Swedish, you know, all different people. They have also a lot of our British mediums did lectures. Mavis Patilla has a CD that's available at the Hydesville website, Hydesville Schoolhouse website for purchase. A lot of our British mediums at the very beginning of the pandemic, we said, would you do a lecture for the fundraiser? And can we keep it and then sell it? So you'll see there's probably 15 new lectures at $20 a pop, which people forever into the future can purchase, which the money will go to the fund. You know, we're always looking at ways to continue the funding, and like I said as well, long-term funding. So, you know, it's not going to worry that it's going to be bankrupt every year into the future.
That's tremendous. That's really, it's great. I mean, it's so wonderful people coming together to preserve all of this history there in Hydesville. Now we just have to get them to rename that part of the town back to Hydesville, right?
Well, thank God the street sign's there, so that's not going anywhere. So, you know, and, you know, I really do think, I think it will become a place really, even on a greater scale. I know people come, there's no doubt about it, but I think it could become, you know, every year growing it a little bit, quite a big thing. And I have a lot of hope, and I've talked to Christine about this, a lot of hope for the future of American spiritualism. The British won't like me saying this, but you know, it started here, it flourished here, it went to England and has really flourished in England. But I think the wave has come back to America. So I think we're in a wonderful position to grow across the country. The interest in mediumship, the openness of our religion, women in positions of leadership. I mean, there's just so much that speaks for the potential of, you know, to me, huge growth again. So it's fantastic in that way.
Well, thank you for everything you are doing. You know how I feel about you. So.
Oh, It's magical. I have to say, it's a magical journey. It's, it's daunting, and it's everything else, and it's worrying, it's everything else, but yes, it's amazing. And, like I said, the support has been there. And I think we're really just the worker bees for the spirit world and the great spirit God. So it's fantastic. And luckily, I love that part. I love farmland. I love driving through that part of upstate New York. To me, to leave New Jersey, it's such a beautiful region. The lakes up there, and if you continue up to Lily, they're just stunning. Everything is just stunning. So, maybe there'll be a Congress, in this area in the future. So that'll be fantastic. So I don't know if there's any other question I can answer for anybody, but that's where we are, and it's coming along quite nicely, actually. So.
Onward, ever onward. Onward and upward. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you for including me in this, and I really do appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Our goal is to get a global calendar of all the spiritualists so we can all know what's going on and participate and just build that positive energy.
Nope. If we don't stick together, it won't succeed. We have to cross all lines now and, thrive together. We certainly can do that. Well, thank you very much for having me. And I'll be seeing you. So.
Okay, well, we will let you go. I promised people we were going to give them a little comfort break now, so okay. So I think we'll do that, and I guess we will see you later.
Yes, you will.
Okay, great. Thank you
very
again.
much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just reading the little post, so appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sending our group hug out to Reverend Janet Nohavik. So as I mentioned, I did promise a comfort break. So we're going to take a short little 5-minute break. As per usual, you're going to hear some songs about March 31st. But when you hear Cozy's song, Our Place, that's the time to start coming back.
March 31st marks the date when in 1848 events took place that began a new communing with woman and man. Hydesville, New York, in a cottage small, where 2 Fox sisters got the call. No one around, not a sound. Then came the knocks and the wrath flows profound. It surprised them, yes, we know. From the start, how did it grow? Helping each to understand. Communication is not new. It had its start when the world was new. But we should know in modern times, these 2 sisters received the signs. Natives in lands far away, they could tell what God would say. They had their ways to relate. When God had something he wished to state, sages past did appear, sharing God's love that was most dear, telling us of our great plan. March 31st marks the date when in 1848 events took place that began a new communing with woman and man. traditions never end. Not when we pay tribute to the place it all began. Spirit manifested with those legendary knocks. Frightful things to witness for our Kate and Maggie Fox. Kate and Maggie's struggles put a strain upon their youth. Still the spirits told them time to demonstrate the truth. We don't have to fear death, for our spirit will live on. This is our foundation and the music for our song. Follow me to Hydesville and we'll give a silent prayer, showing that we're grateful for the things that started there. Knowing that we don't die helps to show us how to live. Shining love and healing and the power to forgive.
March 31st, 1848, brought to the world the knowledge of a place that is real, a place that's very close, a place that's just beyond this physical plane. Our friends and our family that have gone on before, just wait for the moment when we hear their call. The call that says we love you, call that says we care. We're here to give guidance. We're here 'cause we care. This place is called the Summerland by other spirit worlds. The house that we live in, we start building it from here. With our thoughts and our deeds, our actions, we decide how strong the foundation of the house will reside. Please let's remember and never forget March 31st, 1848. A place that is real, a place that's very close, a place that's just beyond this physical plane.
Did everyone get enough of a break? We are now going to continue with our Spiritualist Historical Sidebar interviews, as we call them. And please continue to donate. I would love to say that we are going to put another couple of candles on the cake in this hour. So this interview we very much enjoyed. It's with the Reverend Cozy Allen. So I hope you're all back from your break, and let's give our full attention to this interview with Reverend Cozy Allen.
Hi, Cozy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Would you please tell us, please introduce yourself and for everyone.
I'm Cozy Allen. My home church is Golden Rule Spiritualist Church in Bay Shore, Michigan. And I'm pastor there of the church and the camp, Northern Lake Michigan Spiritualist Camp. And in fact, it was the first spiritualist church I was ever in, was where I am now pastor. My home residence is Las Vegas, Nevada.
So tell us what brought you to spiritualism and how long have you been a spiritualist?
My mother. I'm a multi-generational spiritualist, which I don't particularly care for that phrase, so I don't say it that often to people. And I was probably 9 or 10 years old. My mother would go to church, but she never forced us to any church. And one day I wanted to go with her, so I came. And I said, and I was listening to the speaker, who I found out later was the pastor of the church. And when she was done, I mean, I was just a little girl. And when she was done speaking, I couldn't understand why she stopped, because there were so many more things that she could have said going, I was hearing that. Other things that could be said. And I was hearing music, and the words to the song I was hearing in my mind was going fit in with what she had just talked about. And I thought that was interesting. And I'm sitting there with my mother, and all of a sudden this woman, God bless her, she came to me with what I now know as a message. And my mother said it was all right. And she's telling me things, and I'm thinking, how does she know that? My mom must have told her. And she kept telling me things, and I'm thinking, I didn't say that. And then when church was over, I was very frightened. And I was frightened not because I was scared of anything except my mother, because if I was ever in church and that woman said things that I didn't want my mom to know, then I figured I'd be in real trouble. So as silly as that sounds, I didn't go back for a little while. And as a little kid, you don't know, you know. So then I went back and I was hooked, because I kept hearing more things when the person that just spoke was finished, and I could never understand why they wouldn't keep going, because I was hearing it. And I was hearing this music that went along with everything they said. I was so filled. Actually, I was overfilled with inspiration, with excitement, with just a knowing how blessed I was to be a part of this. And slowly and gradually, I journeyed my road to spiritualism. I was ordained in November 22nd, 1989. I'm National Spiritualist. I hold all the credentials with the National Spiritualist Association of Churches, and I feel so blessed with the knowledge of spiritualism and the growth and the power and the strength. I could just go on, but I shan't. So that's how I became and came into this religion of spiritualism.
Tell us about your involvement in the Fox property.
As the date of March 31st, 1898 kept coming closer, about a year before that, I was on the national board, and I thought it was very important that we celebrate the 150th anniversary to spiritualism, the Advent, and what better place than the Fox property. And I was first on the property in July of 1987. And I was doing research for NSAC because I had found in going through the course that there were dates that were wrong with certain things in the history of spiritualism, and that concerned me. And so I was able to go to Rochester, New York, and then to Hyattsville and investigate and get information. And if you've never been to the Rochester Library in Rochester, New York, you must go there because it's phenomenal. They have a section, or they did at the time, for spiritualism and the Fox family there. And there was, when I was first on the property, again, I was, spirit was ever so close. And it was, I just couldn't let go of needing, and could have been selfish, probably was, the importance of 150th anniversary. And one thing led to another, and not everyone agreed with me, which was fine. There isn't too much that has ever stopped me in my life. And one thing led to another. I was gifted with some very close friends that felt it as important as I did. So I started writing letters, and I sent letters out around the world that there would be a 150th celebration at Hyattsville. I had contacted the hotel there, which is now, I think, the Quality Inn, and set up for a banquet and the weekend and everything. There was 1 or 2 busloads of people, and the event ended up to be between close to, if not a little more than 200 people that came from different spiritualist organizations, which is very important to me that there were so many recognized. And one thing led to another. I had been in contact with a writer for the local newspaper in Newark, and National had tried to claim that property, buy that property, but it was said it was in the name, the deed was in the name of someone. Well, come to find out, the deed was in the name of an organization, and that had been non-existent for several years. Having the knowledge I had with situations like that, I called the secretary of NSAC, and she sent a vote out to the board, and August 30th, I was in the office of an individual because to put the property in the name of the National. And that's how we received the property. And they post-dated my signing the document to March 31st, 1898. We had a wonderful banquet, and at that banquet, I asked people to talk about pretty much like what you're doing now, and where they saw spiritualism. It was phenomenal. It was a rainy day that weekend, but I wanted a pilgrimage to the property. Now you have to understand, the property that people walk on now was so overgrown that there was barely a pathway to get down through anything. And that Sunday, we had a Sunday service, and as we were getting ready to close the service, the sun started to come out. And I asked people to, when they wanted to go on the pilgrimage, to make sure they had shoes, because it would probably be muddy. It had rained all weekend. And I didn't want them to ruin any good shoes. So it was amazing. We got to the property, we walked on the pass, and it was as dry can be. And we said a final blessing and prayer and experienced that wonderful weekend and day. It was just incredible. And to be able to say that the NSAC was gifted with being able to have the paper signed to own the property, but to always remember it's for spiritualism and spiritualists worldwide. That fills me like you just can't believe. I think I'm just so grateful for it. So that is how that property was acquired.
So what does Hydesville Day represent to you today?
It represents a gift to all of humanity. When we stop and think that because of two little girls, dropping the veil between this and the spirit world, to be able to communicate with those that have made their transition and that are there, and we can still communicate with, and to know what they went through, and so many people went through, for us to have the ability to have this day, to have a denomination that we can call our own, and the gifts that we can give to all of humanity when we break the veil to communicate with those in the spirit world. And it really isn't breaking a veil, because the spirit world is everywhere around us. This day means, I don't know that my vocabulary is big enough for what this day means to me. It's joy. It's giving. It's truth. It's absolute understanding that life, that we are living in eternity now, that we are celebrating the life of so many that have gone before us, that still walk with us, that still talk with us, and help lighten our pathway to a much greater, higher evolution of life that we could ever imagine. It's phenomenal. It's just simply phenomenal to be able to grab a door handle and open a door that everyone from around the world can walk into their door, and they can walk through, and we can experience this all together. I don't know that we could ask for anything greater than that. Oh, I'm sure we can. And Spirit knows I do a lot. I don't know if that's a good answer, but spiritualism is such a gift of knowledge and understanding and growth. And to know that, just to know that with the knowledge of spiritualism and this day, I get speechless. So to give you a good answer, that's probably the best you're going to get from me right now, because I don't know how to express myself any greater. It's such, again, it's that little girl sitting in that church, overflowing. Spirit is so overflowing. I guess that's about the best I can do.
Well, the next question is, do you have a favorite spiritual experience that you'd like to tell us about?
There's so many. May I tell you, and I'll try and keep it brief. Something that tickles me when I think about it, about the Reverend Maggie Waite, who was a pioneer. She was a medium. She lived in Chicago, and during the early 1920s, for a number of years, mediums had difficulty they were arrested if they were in church or doing any of their work with their mediumship. They were arrested and went to jail. Many did. The Reverend Harry Hilborn from Chicago, Illinois, told me a story about Maggie Waite, the Reverend Maggie Waite, excuse me. And she was arrested for fortune telling. And so she was taken to court. And she stood before the judge, and the judge said, I see that you, and I'm paraphrasing this, I see that you're here arrested fortune telling. And she said, yes, sir. And she said, but I wasn't fortune telling. I wasn't doing any fortune telling. I don't do that. I was doing my mediumship work. Well, he wasn't sure what all that meant, but she said, I don't prophesy and things like that. I don't tell fortunes. I, communicate with spirit. And he said, okay, you give me a reading right now. Prove to me that what you do is not fortune telling. So she said, okay. And she did, right there in court. And when she was done, he hit his gavel and fined her $200 for knowing too much about him. And that always tickled me. Isn't that cute? It's a cute story. I've seen some spiritualist workers. I remember sitting at a state convention one time here in Michigan with my teacher, the Reverend Norma McDermott, and the Reverend Alfred Connor, who was our guest worker that year. And we're sitting around, we're talking about spiritualism and the different types and the phases and everything. And all of a sudden I'm hearing this cat meow. And I'm looking around, and I knew that I had lost a cat, and I thought maybe Norma brought a cat, which was foolish to think because she wouldn't have done that. And I looked up at the Reverend Alfred Connor and I said, did you hear that cat? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, where is it? And he said, well, that's your cat that passed away, that is now in spirit. And that's who we're hearing. And it was phenomenal. And then I felt her around me, you know, but to hear her meow was kind of cool. There was also another state convention worker here in Michigan at the time, and he had some index cards and he had some felt pens in a big wicker basket with a top on it. And he talked to us about precipitous writing. And he opened the wrappers of index cards and handed them out to people and asked us to hold them. And he talked some more, and we were holding these cards. And then somebody walked around with this wicker basket, and we put our cards in there. And then they went up to the platform area. Someone else was holding the wicker basket next to the medium, and someone else took the felt pens and took the tops off and put them inside there. And he was talking more, you know, teaching is the proper way to say it, I guess. And I kept hearing scratch sounds, and others heard it. And then the sound stopped. Somebody took the top off the wicker basket, and the medium grabbed the cards and walked around and handed them to all the people who received the message from Spirit. That was really phenomenal. I've seen that done a couple times. It's pretty incredible. So I guess that's it.
Well, how does spirit communication proven through mediumship enhance your life?
Well, being in a cottage for almost a year, being able to communicate with them keeps one sane. Gives me strength to do the work that I do, especially this time of year in my counseling that I've done up here with parishioners and other people. Knowing that there is no end, I'm not real sure how to answer your question, and I apologize for that. It gives me strength. Spirit gave me much strength as I did both memorial services for my parents when they made their transition, and helped me to help my family and friends that were so touched be able to work through their grief with a greater understanding. When I was able to go to hospitals and work with my healing mediumship, my commission, to help others know that to assist them in their strength, however they needed to, was best for them at the time. When I teach classes, Spirit is right there and helps me. I don't know a day that I have not had chats with Spirit to help me with a better understanding, looking at things. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I'll let Ellen ask the last question.
Okay. So in 2021, we now celebrate 173 years of modern spiritualism. Where do you see spiritualism in 173 years from now.
Greater than this universe has ever known it to be. I'm very affirmed with the vision that Emma Hardage Britton had. I see spiritualism. Many of our churches have had to go on hiatus or be closed or through this pandemic. I see more people in our churches physically. I see philosophy talking. I hope none of you are English teachers. Sorry. I see our churches, more people physically in our churches. I see the religion and science of spiritualism more, as Emma Hardage Britton said, to be talked about from our platforms more than ever before. I see great achievements in the science of spiritualism, and there will be a way. As spiritualists, we know that it is scientifically proven. We know that. But science itself, with the repeatability factor that is needed, science itself is going to turn that corner and have the same strong beliefs. And no, excuse me, belief is a wrong word to use, will be totally affirmed that there truly is communication beyond this physical world. And there are so many more advances that are going to be done, and we will see within within 25 to 50 years from now, there will be more people who are in same wavelength, so to speak, with the understanding of spiritualism. The growth of spiritualism will be so far beyond our comprehension as we have this day, that we will look back and see how we have traversed forward to be the great pioneers of those who will follow us. Children will be brought to the forefront more and more as our understanding of how to better protect them in their work than ever before. But within 25 to 50 years, we will see nothing but absolute growth. And as we go forward, planting our seeds of understanding of this great religious body, spiritualism, all will have a better understanding and ideas of the work of spirit, not only from those in the spirit world, but those here in the physical world, because as we will constantly remember, we are spirit first, with a soul encased in this body. And this is where our knowledge and our seeds of thought will be planted, and we will watch the fruits of our labors and our churches be ever stronger than before. We will not, in many of our churches, have room to have enough chairs. There will be standing room only in our churches in a very short amount of time. Because remember, my friends, remember the natural laws that we live by, and those laws have to do with attraction and vibration and all the others that are coming together, and all those that see our works to hear the words of spirit come forth will walk through the doors, and they will stay with us. The numbers of spiritualism will grow beyond our belief system and as we know it now. God bless you all for the job that you are doing to bring the truths of spiritualism forth for all the world to see, because all those spiritualists around the world will gather and form as one this beautiful day of the advent of modern spiritualism as it comes forth will touch so many lives and also save many lives. God bless you all on your journey as you go forward, not only with this project, but all other days to come. God bless you.
Let's give her a few minutes to come back. You have water there? Cozy, you got, okay.
Do you know who just came through?
No. I expect nothing but the best and the highest. And so I know who, and I was taught years ago in class not to be concerned with the names, just be the best instrument you can be to bring forward who is able to work with you, and you'll never go wrong.
Well, it was just a privilege to have that happen while we were speaking with you today. We were very blessed to have that happen.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you are all doing, and I thank you from the bottom of my very being for your gift to all spiritualists everywhere to have this opportunity to celebrate this magnificent day together.
And I don't want to omit the conversation that you wanted to share with us about your painting. So if you'd like to do that, you're welcome to do that as well. And that's totally up to you.
Oh, my photograph back here.
Yes.
It's a painting. There's very few of them. There's one in the upstairs in a classroom at the Morris Pratt Institute in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I believe there's one in the national office, but I'm not sure. When this photograph belonged to the Reverend Sharon Snowman, and when she made her transition in 2014, her sons gifted this photograph to me, and I treasure it greatly. If you look at the March-April issue of the Spotlight, if you ever have an opportunity to see the cover on that issue, which will be celebrating the 173rd anniversary of spiritualism. That is an example of what. Can you see that? It's probably not very good, is it? This is the house, the Hydesville house. I don't know if you can see the chimney there. And out the windows of this house is our spirit going up. It's not a very good likeness, is it? Looks better this way. Well, thank you for including me in this. And again, I thank everyone for all that they have done and all that they are doing and will continue to do even after this special event.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that's the power of spirit. Wasn't that wonderful for spirit to come through and answer that last question for all of us? So I want to give you all a quick update. You know we have a matching gift challenge. And that is in honor of 1848. $18,480 will be matched dollar for dollar. And we now have an update that so far donations have come in at $2,213 to match that gift. So of course we'd love to get to the finish line today if at all possible. And and that is for our endowment fund, and that is the fund that's going to take care of the Fox property, the Hydesville Memorial Park, way into the future. And we are still having donations come in for the Fox Cottage Preservation Fund. That's what's going to put that new roof on for us and the other repairs we need to do mucho pronto. So I will update you a little bit later. Ellen's going to put the donation link in again. And we're going to have another wonderful musical piece from our guests. As you may have heard me say earlier, but I'll say it again. Gary and Nancy Rial met in 1975 at a spiritualist church and found that they had two things in common, spiritualism and music. So they are going to sing for us a song written by John Denver and Joe Henry called Looking for Space. And then Reverend Nancy Rial will be leading our Spirit Art Gallery tour. She'll be hosting us. And as I mentioned, she's a singer and a songwriter, but let me tell you, as a practicing spiritualist for over 45 years, she's an ordained minister, she's a certified medium, she carries credentials with the National Spiritualist Association of Churches and is an active member of the International Spiritualist Federation and acts as the editor of their newsletter, Fraternally Yours. I'm sorry, Yours Fraternally. And the membership representative, she is the membership representative for the eastern portion of the United States. She is currently the pastor of the J.T. and E.J. Crumbaugh Spiritualist Church in Leroy, Illinois. Nancy is experienced in all forms of mediumship, but has a special love for trance and physical mediumship. She channels multiple spirits who will often assist in her demonstrations, lectures, and church services. And Nancy teaches workshops on trance, manifestation, healing, and meditation, and many other topics. And Nancy also teaches online classes. Her website is linkwithspirit.com, where you can see an example of her trance mediumship. So we're going to hear Gary and Nancy together making music for us, singing Looking for Space, and then she will be our host for the Spirit Art Gallery.
On the road of experience and trying to find my own way, sometimes I wish that I could fly away. When I think that I'm moving, suddenly things stand still. I'm afraid 'cause I think they always will. And I'm looking for space, trying to find out who I am. And I'm looking to know and understand. It's a sweet, sweet dream. Sometimes I'm almost there. Sometimes I fly like an eagle. And sometimes I'm deep in despair. All alone in the universe, sometimes that's how it seems. I get lost in the sadness and the screams. Then I look to the center, and suddenly everything's clear. I find myself in the sunshine and my dreams. And I'm looking for space, trying to find out who I am. And I'm looking to know and understand. It's a sweet, sweet dream. Sometimes I'm almost there. Sometimes I fly like an eagle. And sometimes I'm deep in despair. On the road of experience, join in the living day. If there's an answer, it's just that way. When you're looking for space, try to find out who you are. When you're looking to try and reach the stars, it's a sweet, sweet dream. Sometimes I'm almost there. Sometimes I fly like an eagle. And sometimes I'm deep in despair. Sometimes I fly like an eagle, like an eagle. I go flying, flying.
Hi, my name is Reverend Nancy Bryle, and I am pastor of the J.T. and E.J. Crumbaugh Spiritualist Church in Leroy, Illinois. Tonight, I am your host of the virtual Spirit Art Tour. Welcome. I thought first we would just talk about a few things regarding spirit art versus precipitated art. Are they the same thing? No, definitely not. Spirit art is mental mediumship, and that is because spirit channels through the medium and takes their hand and actually moves the hand to produce the artwork. So because the medium is touching the canvas or the paper or whatever they are going to be producing the artwork on, it is considered mental mediumship. One of the most famous spirit artists is Stan Matrunik. And Stan Matrunik passed, I believe it was in 1995. Behind me, you see an example of one of Stan's pieces of art here. And I had this done in 1977 when I first came to spiritualism. I had only had a few readings and had never heard of spirit art before. So someone told me that this gentleman was coming and that I should probably take a look and see it. I thought, well, why not? I would love to see what this is all about. So when I first came in for the appointment, excuse me, when I first came in for the appointment, Stan shook my hand and he looks up at me and he says, "You're one of us." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "You're a medium." Well, that was the first prediction that Stan gave me that turned out to be true. We went into a room and sat down. Stan was facing me and we were facing each other, looking at each other. To Stan's right was an easel set up with a piece of velvet paper and several of the pastels sitting out. So he began the reading by closing his eyes. He's straight at me, closing his eyes and linking with spirit. And then he began to tell me about people who had passed over that were in my family, all of it accurate, giving me information, all of it accurate, talking about my current life and what was going on, and actually things that he was predicting for the future that he was being told was going to happen, and all of which came true. Everything was accurate. It was astonishing reading. But what was even more astonishing was that as Stan was talking to me with his eyes closed, his right hand reaches over and picks up a pastel and reaches up and begins to work on this piece of velvet paper. And then he would put one down and pick up another and go back, and it was so amazing because his hand would go right to where it needed to go. And as you can see, the perspective and the balance of this picture is perfect. There's no place where he would have missed or anything like that. And as I said, I was astonished, and I said to him, "How can you create this artwork with your eyes closed?" And he chuckled and he said, "I'm not an artist. I don't know anything about art. I can't even draw." He said, "Spirit is doing this." I was amazed. I'd never seen a phenomena like that before. And if you have, there are many Matruniks around in churches and things like that, but they are gaining in value. I saw one not too long ago on eBay that sold for $1,000 for a single artwork. It's amazing. So hang on to it, treat it well if you have one, or if you have one in your church, because they are definitely very valuable. So are there mediums who do this type of art, spirit art? Absolutely, there are. Certainly not as many as there are mediums, but there are several spirit artists that are available. One of the best that I know is Coral Ryder from the UK. She is really amazing, and she has adapted so well to the Zoom program that we have to use nowadays because of the COVID. She does demonstrations where she will put a camera right on her hands and the artwork that she is doing. So you can see as the picture develops, and she's talking with the audience and she's giving information about the spirit. And as you can see, as the picture begins to take form, and as you begin to see some of the features, eventually somebody from the audience recognizes it and recognizes everything she's saying about the person. And so they wind up getting a reading as well as getting this beautiful portrait that Coral has produced. It's really quite amazing to watch. And if you're interested, there is an upcoming demonstration that Coral will be doing online, and it's through Seaford Spirit, which is Robin Hodson's church in the UK. It's on April the 10th. So if you want to see a demonstration of spirit art, that's your chance to do it. She also teaches classes, and she's the only one that I know of that actually does a class in spirit art, and that is always through the ISF Educational Congress once a year. And I've been a couple of times, and I don't think there's ever been a year that Coral has not done the class. So if you're interested in doing this, if you think you might have that type of mediumship, check that out, because that is a great place to get information. Now, precipitated art, totally different than spirit art. And the reason why it's totally different is it's physical mediumship. The medium's hands never touch the canvas. No brush strokes, no pencil marks, nothing, because the medium does not ever touch the canvas. It is precipitated from spirit themselves. It comes from who knows where. So it is totally different than spirit art. Now, there are two main sources of precipitated art, the Bang sisters and the Campbell brothers, and both were active in the late 1800s. Their techniques were slightly different, but both created some amazing portraits, just simply amazing. On the Bang sisters, there has been research done on some of the portraits, and they found that the media that is used on it is the closest thing they can find to it is the dust on butterfly wings. So you can imagine, this is just an absolutely amazing phenomenon. Another thing about precipitated art is it can change. It's like a living thing. For example, two of the portraits that are housed in Camp Chesterfield, which has a big collection. There's two portraits that are quite famous. There's more than two, actually. But one has a necklace around a lady's neck. And on one day, you may view it, and there is one strand of pearls. And you may view it the next week, and there are two strands of pearls. And then you can go back again and see only one strand of pearls. So it's continually changing. And there is another piece of art there which portrays a rose bush, a lady next to a rose bush. And you can go in and you can count the roses, and it will be a certain number. And then come back the next week and count the roses, and it is a different number. And there's quite a story that relates to the artwork changing. There's several of them. They're living, and they change continually. Many things are similar, like, for example, one of the things that you can tell precipitated art by is they never have eyelashes for some reason. They're never portrayed in the pictures. There's a lot of things that are common, a lot of commonalities between the Bangs and the Campbell brothers. Is there anyone that does precipitated art today? Well, there is a gentleman by the name of Hoyt Robinette who does probably the closest to it. And he uses a basket and crayons and colored pencils, and you wind up with, from what I understand, a small piece of silk that goes into the basket, and you wind up with pictures and signatures and things like that that are pertinent to the person who is getting the piece. So it's certainly not the level of what the Campbell brothers and the Bang sisters did in the past, those huge lifelike portraits and stuff, but it certainly is an interesting phenomena that he can produce. There are two larger collections today that you can view. One, as I spoke of, in Camp Chesterfield. The other is Lilydale. So Lilydale has a number of them, and the curator of the museum there is very knowledgeable in precipitated art, and wrote a book. His name is Ron Nagy, and he wrote a book called Precipitated Spirit Paintings. One of the other people who is probably the most knowledgeable person that I know of regarding precipitated art is Robin Hodson, and he does a lecture on it that is fascinating, and he's studied it a lot and researched it a lot. He just recently did one not too long ago for the NSAC, so if you get an opportunity to take in the lecture, do it, because you will learn a lot about this fascinating phenomenon. We have some churches are fortunate enough to have a painting or two, And what you're going to see is some of the paintings that we had available. Now, Crumbaugh has two. We have Pansy, which is a life-size portrait of a spirit guide, and Abraham Lincoln. Unfortunately, our video did not turn out, so we weren't able to share that with you today. But if you're interested, you can go on our website and you can see pictures of them. But you are going to be able to view some of the other artwork in just a few minutes here. And I just want you to be excited, because this is a very rare and very special phenomena that is unique to spiritualism. And if you can take in some of these collections, do that someday. Meanwhile, we'll get started with our tour, and I hope you enjoy it.
So we are going to bring in Reverend Stacy Kopczynski, who is a ordained minister and certified medium and commissioned healer and national spiritualist teacher through NSAC, and has been a spiritualist for many years. And she is going to be our curator for some pictures we're going to see of art that hangs. Well, I'll let her tell you.
Good afternoon or evening or late evening for those of you in the UK. I am also the administrator of the Morris Pratt Institute, which is America's Spiritualist College located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I do have a few pictures that I created a PowerPoint to share with you today about just some of the collection that Morris Pratt Institute has the privilege of hosting and preserving. Mediumship books. We have probably close to the second largest library of spiritualist books, along with art. The first two slides that I have to show you are actually were done on slates, considered to be slate mediumship. They're fortunately or unfortunately, I do not know the mediums nor the circle that these slates were produced in. But if you want to just move to the next slide, you can see here, this is a one of many slates that we have in our collection. And from what I have been told and explained, slates would be two of them put together and set into the middle of the circle or onto the table in the middle of a home circle. And you could actually sometimes hear the scratching or the imprint of what was being put on the slate. And I have off to the side that this one says, "Something important. We cannot wait to tell you. Don't forget, Jesse." And then you have those beautiful forget-me-nots. The next one is, again, not sure who it is actually contributed to when it comes to mediumship, but it says, "Now don't forget my pretty vase, Uncle Horing, Alice." We also have the privilege of having some paintings attributed to both the Campbell's brothers and the Bang sisters. This one, and I'm sorry I don't have the titles, I apologize, but this one is a beautiful young woman you can see here, and she is attributed to the Campbell's brothers. We know this because of, actually, someone mentioned Ron Nagy. In his book, he has the three pictures, or he has photographs of the three paintings in which, or spirit art, in which we have hanging in MPI. The next one is considered to be the young woman attributed to the Bang sisters. From my understanding, this was actually the widow of a gentleman who sat for the Bang sisters. Again, if you ever get a chance to hear Robin Hodson talk about this type of art, he knows a lot about the Bang sisters and the Campbell's brothers, and they were from Chicago and worked all over America producing this phenomena that is just really breathtaking. I'm lucky. If any of you ever want to come and visit Morris Pratt, once the travel bans are lifted, we would welcome you to see our collection. I'm lucky that I get to sit with these paintings almost on a daily basis. Next. This also is called The Flower Child, Interesting enough, this one has been told to me as information has been handed down. I think Nancy had talked about in the introduction of sometimes these precipitated art pieces can actually move or change. And I have taken numerous pictures of this before, and it's always interesting how the colors of the flowers are constantly changing from vivid to subtle to soft to dark. It's just absolutely beautiful and breathtaking. Next. And then I am, again, not sure the name of this one, but this one also is attributed to the Campbell brothers. I noticed, and I'm sorry because of the first picture, that first picture of the young woman with the white and the beaded kind of collar actually has the same star, maybe a little bit different color as this woman has in her hair. So I wonder if that might be some sort of symbol or sign that came from Spirit, actually. Thank you. And last, this is also another look at pearl necklace. Interesting. This is also attributed to the Bang sisters. I just wanted to share with you also just some information very quickly about MPI's collection. We were approached by the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and I would like to just take a moment and tell you that they have put together an amazing collection of spirit art that's actually doing a national tour. It actually opens June 12th in Toledo, the Toledo Museum of Art, Ohio. We were able to donate to their exhibit a book and a slate with a portrait on it. But if you have a chance to check this out, if you're in the Ohio area, it's there in Toledo starting in June 12th, October 7th through January 2nd, 2020. It's in the Speed Art Museum, which is in Kentucky, I believe, and then ending in Minneapolis. It's the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and their exhibit is called Supernatural America, the Paranormal in American Art. They have used pictures not only from MPI, but through Chesterfield, all over the U.S. They have found beautiful works of spirit art or precipitated art, and I strongly suggest that you check it out. Thank you for allowing me to share part of our collection with you this evening.
Wow, that was really wonderful. We appreciate that. And I believe that Stacy is also going to be our host for this next segment, which is the spirit art at the NSAC. So I will let Ellen take it away.
Spirit art tour of the NSAC office. This first spirit drawing I would like to show you is of Pat Murphy. You can see the name in the bottom right-hand corner. Quite a fine Irish bloke. Look at the detail of this is quite exquisite. I believe that this is attributed to the Bang sisters and their mediumship. And we will continue on with the tour. Next, we come into the well-loved and well-known Fox sisters. Very beautiful. Again, exquisite detail. Here at the end of the hallway, we have another young woman, child. This is also accredited to the Bang sisters. Okay, and here we have a trance sketch that was done. Where my camera focuses in, you can see the portrait of the gentleman, but you can also see behind him the outline of Andrew Jackson Davis. So Andrew Jackson Davis, the seer, realized the guardianship of this spirit as his angel. Father, the face, for that, the face in the background is his love. So if you can see that, and it says Louis F. Jones, June 11th, 1915, made in a trance state. And if I can back up so you can see the picture, that took 3 hours and 45 minutes. All right, here is another portrait done in trance by Louis Jones of Bangor, Maine, under the guidance of Joseph John. This is the rest home of Dr. Andrew Jackson Davis in the higher life. Again, year 1915. And it was done in the presence of Dr. F.S. Bigelow from Sheboygan, Maine. This one took 5 hours in trance. I will try to get a little closer. Sorry for the reflection of the glass. And here we have a guide named Smartweed. Again, this is attributed to the Bang sisters. And right next to her, as we move over, we have the oh so famous Blossom. Again, attributed to the Bang sisters. And on our final picture, the green lights are our computer, so don't worry, they're not part of the painting. The final picture is William Mervyn from Madison, Wisconsin, age 30. This was produced again by the Bang sisters of Chicago. He had passed to spirit, and his portrait came through for his brother who was sitting with the sisters that day.
Yay. Thank you so much, Stacy, for showing us that art and giving us the tour. So our next tour is going to take us to the West Coast, to the Golden Gate Spiritualist Church with our host, the pastor there, Reverend Del Lauterbach. So I'll let Ellen bring that up for us.
I'm Reverend Del Lauterbach of the Golden Gate Spiritualist Church, which is where we are. We're on the second floor social hall right now, where there are a number of the precipitated paintings produced through Reverend Florence Becker's physical mediumship displayed. This painting here and here were done through the mediumship of the Bang sisters. They belong to the California State Spiritualist Association. They were brought here when the State Association closed its office in Los Angeles some years ago. But this has a testimony on it from the woman's husband. I received this picture through the mediumship of the Bang sisters in Chicago in February 1911. The work was done in less than 10 minutes without brush or paint. Lizzie was my wife and passed to spirit December 17th, 1895, and is signed by George A. Cook, George A. Cook, El Monte, California, 12/10/24. Okay, these are all precipitated paintings that are in the church. Precipitated paintings is a form of mediumship. The Bang sisters are most known for what they did. Reverend Becker had, there's 20, well, I'll just estimate there's about 30 of them in here. They're all done in seances. No brushes have ever touched these canvases. They manifest from the spirit world. The Bang sisters could sit a canvas out under a tree in broad daylight and you could sit and watch the painting come up the canvas. Reverend Becker's were done in seances where they were darkened, and the spirit would prepare the painting on the spirit's side. They would ask the people to put certain things in the seance with them. A little piece of wood, some sort of paint, didn't make any difference what color it was. Then spirit would prepare the painting on the spirit's side, and when the painting was done, they would hear a loud concussion. When the painting was brought from the spirit's side into the room and pressed on the canvas. Some of them are very beautiful. This one over here, you can catch that with the roses. That was the first one that was done through her mediumship around 1911. Reverend Florence Becker was the founder of the church and its principal medium and pastor and teacher until she passed to spirit on July 12th of 1970. Well, the ones that were done with Reverend Florence Becker, of course, most of them were brought here after she passed to spirit, but there were some that were here before she passed. The spirit used her for this phase of mediumship, precipitated paintings from about 1911 through 1928. And whenever one of these paintings would be done in a seance, Reverend Becker told us that she would have a black and blue mark about the size of a dinner plate on her body somewhere where spirit had taken material out of her body to use to help make these paintings and to provide the material substance that they needed with whatever they did on the spirit side to make the painting and impress it on the canvas. The paintings, all her paintings, all the rest of these are done by her. This is a Bang Sisters painting, as are these two here. And they were taken, as I said before when we were over there, from the California State Spiritualist Association in Los Angeles while it was still open. And when it closed, they were brought up here so they could be displayed. This is a magnificent painting here. They all are.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. In the seances, the people were asked to sing. The paintings were done on the spirit side, or the project was supervised by an artist who had been an artist on this earth named Ray Pierre. And he wanted to do more paintings because he hadn't lived here long enough to finish everything he wanted to do here. So they worked from 1911 through 1928. And she said in the last one they did, she said that she told him she wasn't going to do anymore because it took too much out of her physically. So then they stopped doing it. Why do they it's a form of physical mediumship, and it's done to show and to prove that there is a power on the other side, and these are some of the kinds of things they can do with physical mediumship.
Wow, that was great. So you've heard a lot. I think you've heard his name quite a bit throughout the day about spirit art. Ron Nagy is the historian of the museum in Lilydale, and he is going to be our next art curator showing us the art in Lilydale. So I'll let Ellen bring in Ron Nagy.
Good morning, I'm Ron Nagy, Lilydale historian, and we're here at the museum, and we're going to talk about a little bit about precipitated spirit paintings, what they are, and how they're done. A precipitated spirit painting is a painting that appears on canvas without touching it with any means that you would draw it yourself or paint it yourself. The best mediums that could do this were the Campbell brothers, and the Bang Sisters. And you would go to them, and you would just have, maybe one person or two person or three people could all go to them for a painting to be done. Now, I call these paintings, but they're not really paintings, they're materializations on canvas. But since they're always been called paintings, I call them paintings too, but they just appear on canvas. But you would go and you would concentrate on a person, a loved one that had passed away, that possibly you never had a picture of, or you wanted a message from or something. Your message from them would be physical proof that, hey, I'm in the afterlife and I just appeared on canvas. And they always appear not when they're 100 years old and ugly. Like, I'm not going to appear like that. I'm going to appear like when I was like 35 or 38. I mean, I'm wasted now. But that's the picture that she wanted to appear by. This is Mrs. Caldwell. They built what we call now the Angel House guest house is. But this is pretty famous because there was a lady here from Japan, and she was like really short. So I got a chair, and she stood on the chair, and she got a magnifying glass that I usually keep out here, and she was looking in the eyes and looking all over the thing. And there was an AP photographer here, took a picture of it, and it went viral. It was in every newspaper around the world. The way you tell that these are precipitated is look in the eyes. The eyes have something special about them. You look in the eyes, and they look real. I had an iridologist come in here, and she looked at this one and she said, no, this is impossible because the eyes weren't, you can't draw the autonomic nerve root. And it's in this eye. The autonomic nerve root runs completely through your body, and it tells about everything that's wrong with your body. It's like the main nerve that runs through your body. It's almost your DNA. They can tell it through the eye. And that's how I told that. But also, you don't really see any strokes in these things. This is Bang Sisters. This is the Bang Sisters. The way you can tell that they're Bang Sisters is usually one side is darker than the other. Okay, you still got your eyes. They're just there, like it's a photograph put in there. And these aren't photographs. They may look like photographs, but there was no color photography back when these were done. This one here is a Campbell Brothers. A Campbell Brothers, you could tell because they always put a little ribbon on the left side over the heart, on the lapel. The Campbell Brothers were not brothers, they were a gay couple in times of less understanding. So what they were called back then were boon companions. And I looked that up all over the place and I couldn't find it anywhere, but that's what they called them. And they owned a house in Boston. They had one in Atlantic City, right on the boardwalk. And they would also travel Europe. They had two houses here in Louisville. But one thing I recognize about them is I was originally from Philadelphia, and they were from Atlantic City, and they owned 777 Boardwalk. The boardwalk around 1900 was the biggest boardwalk in the country, and it was mafia controlled. But they owned 777, which I found that was a double property, and they had a glass front and it was an antique shop. So that's what they did in their off season. It was a hobby. What they also did for Lilydale in 1898 was that's something. They produced Azure in 1898, but also Lilydale had 1 year, we had a Ferris wheel. It was all wooden, all wooden. There was only 3 in the United States, 1 in Atlantic City, 1 in Lilydale, and 1 in Chicago. Well, they must, and this isn't in history, but they were the ones that had the most money here. They, I feel, leased or rented the Ferris wheel, had it all shipped here by rail, and the crew came here, put it all together down by the beach, where our beach is today. They had that set up. And to run that, though, they needed a big gas generator. And that gas generator made noise like, and it only lasted 1 year, not because it wasn't popular. It wasn't popular with the mediums because the mediums couldn't read. They couldn't, 40 acres we sit on here, the mediums couldn't hear so they got rid of, they sent it back. But we had it 1 year and it was wooden. And I was told that by a Ferris wheel specialist. He was a collector and he actually showed me the different ones and he gave me a good written history of the wooden Ferris wheels. That was Otto von Bismarck. The Campbell brothers used to travel around the world, but they were like missionaries for spiritualism. They would go to different places and they just didn't have a seance in a room for regular people. What they concentrated on is back around 1900, if you changed the religion of the emperor or the king, the whole country would be either Catholic, Methodist, or Spiritualist.
Yeah.
So that's why they have so many famous people that they've done, like Abraham Lincoln, Otto von Bismarck, so forth. This one here is another one that gets a lot of attention. We call her Clara. There was no name. A very beautiful young girl. The iridologist said she died very painfully, very quickly, and it was some kind of a brain fever, which today we call mad cow's disease. And I guess the doctors have another name for it that I can't pronounce. But if you look in her eyes, which I had a lot about her in my book, because if you look in her eyes, you could actually, with a magnifying glass, and I had a 10x magnifier, you could look in her eyes and you could see the back of her eyes. I had an actual eye doctor in here, and he was like flabbergasted when he seen inside her eyes, because you could actually see what her back of her eye and the reflection on the back of her eye of the different things that are in there. And somebody identified the Lady of Guadalupe. It was like that. They could look into her eyes. On the Lady of Guadalupe is a saint now, but it appeared on a bamboo kind of papyrus. The person that discovered that was also made a saint. And they say you look in there, and I know nothing about Catholicism or the Lady of Guadalupe or anything, but there are other people looking there, and they're actually seeing that Lady of Guadalupe Plus, they're seeing the person that took the picture of the Lake Guadalupe inside those eyes. So it's worth taking a look at them. And I don't have it out here right now, but I was at a ski resort some years ago, and we were sitting in a restaurant like bar room type thing, and they collected all kind of old things and had them hanging from the walls and all. Well, there was one of these there hanging from the wall, and it had a nice frame. So my book had just come out. So it always happens that way. I couldn't put it in my book. The picture that was hanging there, I got the owner, and he told me a little bit about it. Well, they bought it at a yard sale for $5. And it looked almost like this, the same type or kind of style dress, and it was old. It was her mother. And I forget where I put it because the museum's a mess now. I said, oh my God, if I could just have that on the wall here. They brought it in here and they compared it with her, and they let me take it all apart, and I got test smudges from it, and we had cleaned the glass up and all like that, and I reframed and matted it for them, and they just loved it. And I said, oh, boy, if I could just have that. They said, I'd make a spot on the wall to put it. And they said, we are going to put that in on a will for Louisville. And I said, oh, yes. But I don't know. They're my age, so I might not get to see that. But that would be great to put it next to me. There's a life-size precipitated painting of Ashford down at the Maplewood Hotel. It's one of the most popular paintings that we have. There people come from all over the world and the United States just to see that. They could sit by and they could feel the energy coming from that. We know the most about that precipitated painting because it was produced here in Louisville, right behind the museum. There's a building that the Campbell brothers owned, and they loved birds and bird feeders, and it was near Forest Temple, and it was all heavier woods back there then. Well, they had it produced in there in 1898. They had 6 people sit in the audience, and the one, Alan, would sit. They had a cabinet, but it wasn't a full cabinet. It was just like an archway with a curtain that went this far. It left the front open. Alan would sit in there. Now the lights were dimmed a little bit more than we are here, but it wasn't a dark seance for that. And the 6 people that were there wanted to see what the Alan Campbell spirit guide looked like. So within an hour, it took an hour and a half, and as Alan would sit in the cabinet, the one person from the audience would come up and sit across from them, like say it must have been this far. I'd be sitting here and the witness would be there. And they would sit there just long enough, and a little bit of the painting would appear at a time, just very slowly, like a Polaroid. You take a old Polaroid picture, and it's very painful because you got to sit there and look at it. It's not like look and at a time clock, but it's really painful because you got to keep on looking at it. But it's just appearing very, very slowly in front of you. So the first person would be there long enough. Go take a seat. The next person would come up and sit. Well, there were 6 people. Eventually, the painting appeared full. The 6 people signed an affidavit to what happened, what the situation was, where they were, and so forth and so on. But the strangest thing that happened was when Alan Campbell was sitting in there, the other people were in the audience, the painting was done, Alan Campbell was still in trance, and he started talking. Azure was talking through Alan Campbell, and the spirit guide told Alan Campbell what his name used to be. He came from biblical times, and he gave his father's name and what tribe they were a part of, and all that information I found, because after this was done, they made small daguerreotypes, maybe the size of a document. They made small daguerreotypes, and on the back of them, the words were written that Alan Campbell spoke in trance that were from Azure.
Wow, wasn't that exciting? It's really fascinating. Though we don't have time to have any more. Hopefully next year we'll go abroad and bring in even more paintings and stories. So what I want to show you next is a little PowerPoint that really kind of shows us the Hydesville Memorial Park. So let's just take a few minutes to take this in. We have some artifacts in this PowerPoint, some pictures of, for instance, hair from the Fox sisters and things that we have in the museum. So that was a perfect segue that we just heard from Ron Nagy, who is there in the Lilydale Museum.